Why did Agamemnon sacrifice his daughter? Greek mythology explained. Warning: this video contains spoilers from Greek mythology, the Iliad, and references connected to Christopher Nolan's The Odyssey. Some versions of the myth also differ slightly, so we'll explain the most widely accepted tradition. Now, let's begin. Imagine preparing for the greatest war in Greek history. More than 1,000 ships stand ready to sail. The greatest warriors of Greece have gathered. Achilles, Odysseus, Ajax, Menelaus, and leading them all is the mighty King Agamemnon. Everything is ready. There's just one problem. The wind suddenly stops. Days pass. Then weeks. Not a single ship can leave the harbor. Thousands of soldiers begin asking the same question. Why won't the gods let them sail? The answer shocks everyone. The goddess Artemis is angry. And according to the prophecy, there is only one way to calm her wrath. Agamemnon must sacrifice his own daughter. Her name is Iphigenia. It's one of the darkest and most heartbreaking moments in all of Greek mythology. But why would the gods demand such a terrible sacrifice? Did Agamemnon really agree? And was Iphigenia actually killed? The truth is far more tragic and far more complicated than most people realize. Let's explain. The war that couldn't begin. Before the Trojan War could even start, the Greek kings gathered their armies at Aulis. The fleet was enormous. Ancient writers describe more than 1,000 ships waiting to cross the Aegean Sea. Every famous Greek hero was there. Achilles prepared for glory. Odysseus reluctantly joined the expedition after trying to avoid the war. Menelaus wanted to rescue his wife, Helen, from Troy. And Agamemnon served as the supreme commander of the entire Greek alliance. The mission seemed simple. Sail to Troy. Bring Helen home. Win everlasting glory. But the gods had different plans. Without warning, the winds disappeared. The sea became completely still. The ships couldn't move. No matter how prepared the army was, they were trapped. The greatest military expedition in Greek history couldn't even leave the harbor. Why was Artemis angry? According to the most famous version of the myth, Agamemnon had offended Artemis, the goddess of the hunt, wilderness, and wild animals. Exactly how he angered her depends on the ancient source. Some stories say Agamemnon killed one of Artemis's sacred deer while hunting. Others claim he proudly boasted that he was a better hunter than the goddess herself. In Greek mythology, pride against the gods was one of the greatest sins imaginable. Mortals who believed themselves equal to the gods almost always suffered terrible consequences. Whether through arrogance or disrespect, Agamemnon crossed a line. Artemis decided he would pay the price. She stopped the winds. Without favorable winds, the Greek fleet could not reach Troy. Thousands of soldiers waited helplessly while one man's mistake threatened to destroy the entire campaign. The terrifying prophecy. Desperate for answers, Agamemnon consulted the great prophet Calchas. His prophecy stunned the entire army. Artemis would not release the winds. She would not allow the ships to sail. Unless Agamemnon sacrificed his eldest daughter, Iphigenia, the king faced an impossible decision. If he refused, the expedition would fail. Thousands of warriors would return home in disgrace. His brother Menelaus would never recover Helen. The oath sworn by the Greek kings would be broken. If he agreed, he would lose his own child. No father should ever have to make such a choice. Yet according to the prophecy, there was no other way. How did Agamemnon bring Iphigenia to Aulis? The hardest part wasn't agreeing to the sacrifice. It was convincing Iphigenia to come. Agamemnon knew his wife, Clytemnestra, would never willingly bring their daughter to her death. So he devised a cruel deception. He sent word that Iphigenia was being invited to marry the greatest warrior in Greece, Achilles. It sounded like the highest honor imaginable. Believing she was attending her wedding, Iphigenia traveled happily to Aulis with her mother. Only after arriving did they discover the horrifying truth. There would be no wedding, only a sacrifice. For Clytemnestra, the betrayal was unbearable. For Iphigenia, the joyful journey had become a nightmare. Did Achilles know? This is where different versions of the myth tell different stories. In several ancient accounts, Achilles had no idea his name had been used. He was furious when he learned Agamemnon had deceived Iphigenia and Clytemnestra. Some versions even describe Achilles offering to defend Iphigenia with his own life. He stood against the Greek army, refusing to let an innocent young woman die. But the army was desperate. Without the sacrifice, they believed the war could never begin. The will of the gods seemed impossible to resist. Was Iphigenia really sacrificed? This is one of the biggest debates in Greek mythology. In one version of the story, Agamemnon follows through. Iphigenia is sacrificed. The winds immediately return. The Greek fleet sails to Troy. The war begins. But another famous version tells a very different story. Just as the sacrifice is about to happen, Artemis takes pity on the young princess. At the last possible moment, the goddess replaces Iphigenia with a deer. The animal is sacrificed instead. Artemis secretly carries Iphigenia away to the distant land of Tauris. There, she becomes one of the goddess's priestesses. Both versions existed in ancient Greece. Neither completely replaced the other. That's why readers often encounter different endings depending on the source. The consequences changed everything. Whether Iphigenia died or was rescued, Agamemnon's decision had devastating consequences. His wife, Clytemnestra, never forgave him. While Agamemnon spent 10 years fighting at Troy, her anger continued to grow. By the time he finally returned home after the war, she was no longer the loyal queen he had left behind. She wanted revenge. With the help of her lover, Aegisthus, Clytemnestra murdered Agamemnon shortly after his return. In Greek mythology, violence often creates more violence. One tragic choice leads to another. Agamemnon sacrificed his daughter to begin a war. Years later, his own wife ended his life because of that decision. The cycle of revenge never truly stopped. Why this story matters. In Greek mythology, the sacrifice of Iphigenia is far more than a shocking myth. It explores one of the oldest moral questions in human history. What happens when duty conflicts with family? Agamemnon was expected to lead all of Greece. Thousands of lives depended on his decision. Yet he was also a father. Greek mythology rarely offers easy answers. Instead, it forces its heroes to choose between impossible options. No matter what they decide, someone suffers. That moral complexity is one reason these stories continue to resonate thousands of years later. Christopher Nolan's The Odyssey connection. Although Christopher Nolan's The Odyssey focuses on Odysseus' journey home after the Trojan War, Agamemnon's sacrifice remains one of the defining events that shaped everything which followed. Without the winds returning at Aulis, the Greek fleet would never have reached Troy. Without the Trojan War, Odysseus would never have embarked on the long voyage that became the Odyssey. Agamemnon's heartbreaking decision is one of the key events that set the entire epic cycle into motion. It's also why audiences continue searching for the story after watching modern adaptations of Greek mythology. So, why did Agamemnon sacrifice his daughter? Because according to the prophecy, it was the only way to satisfy the goddess Artemis and allow the Greek fleet to sail for Troy. Whether Iphigenia truly died or was rescued by Artemis depends on which ancient version of the myth you read. But every version agrees on one thing. The decision changed Greek mythology forever. It began the Trojan War, destroyed Agamemnon's family, and set in motion a chain of revenge and tragedy that would echo through generations. In the world of Greek mythology, even kings cannot escape the consequences of their choices, and sometimes the greatest battles begin long before the first sword is ever drawn. What do you think? Was Agamemnon right to place the fate of an entire nation above his own daughter, or should he have refused the gods no matter the cost? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more Greek mythology explainers, the Odyssey stories, movie breakdowns, hidden details, and entertainment news. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.